My name is Sam Jenks, and welcome to another episode of The Way We Source, a podcast hosted by Kodiak Hub, where we share our talks with procurement practitioners, leaders, experts, consultants, content gurus, and people that we find downright inspiring, diving into the role that sourcing and procurement plays in the way that we live. If you like today's episode, make sure to give us a rating as well as follow the program. Today, we have the pleasure of hosting a game theorist, digitalization and procurement enthusiast, and self-proclaimed music nerd, according to his LinkedIn page, partner at TWS Partners, and now Geschäftsführer or managing director.
You got it perfectly right someday.
Perfect. At his latest venture, nnamu, Christian Paul. Christian, welcome to the show, and apologies for my German. I know that I can do better than that. Geschäftsführer. No?
Thanks a lot, and thanks for having me. It sounded absolutely perfect.
All right, nice to hear. Nice to hear. I'm sure that my German colleagues will have a different opinion, but I appreciate having you on, and we're looking forward to hearing more about you and the journey you guys are taking at nnamu as well.
Yeah,
I would love to start with a question that we ask a lot of our guests. What exactly does sourcing and procurement mean to you?
Yeah, it's an interesting way to put it. I sometimes ask myself today whether procurement is about sourcing at all anymore. May sound a little provocative. So I think procurement is a little bit like can be the center of everything, the center of creating value for organizations and bringing in all of the stakeholder preferences, and preparing a fantastic strategy and preparing a good sourcing and taking in all of the information from the supply chain that are super important to nominate the right suppliers and hopefully create some value along the journey, and then actually source the business. And I think the steps before, rightfully, have been in the center of development and of ramping up and improving capabilities in the last 10 years or so. Sometimes to an extent that I think that there are people in procurement who never sourced anything then in their life, who never ran a negotiation anymore. So for me, in the ideal case, procurement is all about creating value for the business by doing a very holistic and a very good job from strategy setting, conducting negotiations, and following up properly with supply development measures afterwards.
We also believe that there's a lot of value to be delivered by the role and the function. You guys at nnamu are supporting procurement teams with cutting-edge technology. Do you mind, for those listeners out there, to give us a little bit of background as to what you and the team are aiming to accomplish at nnamu and who you are?
Yeah, sure. So at nnamu, what we are trying to do is democratize the use of game theory. I'm sure we can talk about game theory a little bit more later on. It's like a method that can create a lot of value for businesses, and has a lot of huge advantages, but is relatively hard to master, relatively hard to use. So as of today, the application areas are always limited to having either a boutique consultancy helping out, like my former colleagues at TWS, or building up an expert team. And what we are essentially trying with nnamu is to democratize the use of game theory, not only in procurement, but for everything where you would hire a strategic consultancy for. So it's basically about digitalizing and hence making strategic consultancy scalable for organizations. The nice thing about game theory is it's super easy to combine with artificial intelligence because they basically think the same way. And our mission statement in nnamu is help organization create the value linked to game theory on a much broader scale.
Super interesting. How exactly is nnamu different from procurement solutions of the past?
Yeah. It sounds like a marketing trope, but I think if you want to have,
I asked the question, Christian. Mark it all you want here.
if you want to have impact on something, impact is a product of excellency and adoption rate. And I think there are some digital procurement solutions out there that can be used to apply game theory, but almost none of them are adopted in any meaningful magnitude. And the reason for it is, from my perspective, that they do not focus on UI and UX enough. And most importantly, in this field of game theory, which is relatively hard to master, they don't guide their users. They don't give them any help in saying, out of those game theory approaches that we offer here, these ones are the best. That is the best fit for your situation, and that's exactly where we step in. So we use everything we know. We use AI to kind of not only offer certain game theory methods, and of course we offer slightly different methods than the other solutions, which are more robust and can be easier employed at all with our practitioner view. But most importantly, we kind of add the guide and the recommendation to it, to bridge that experience gap that most procurement professionals have when applying this method.
Interesting. I mean, in layman terms, if we're gonna take one step back for our listeners out there that don't know game theory, and you touched upon it very briefly, but what exactly is game theory for to be able to explain it to me as if I'm a fifth grader?
As a fifth grader who knows something about coding, or as a fifth grader who hasn't heard about this?
So an average student, as I was, Christian.
All right. So I want to say, I think to some extent you can think about game theory as a coding language for any sort of interaction. So game theory is the dominant mathematical technique that economists and many other fields use to model interactions between two parties. And it doesn't matter whether that interaction is something that you experience in your private life in terms of coordinating where do we meet up in the city, or do we go to the cinema, or do we go to a football game, or whether that's an interaction between business parties that meet in the procurement space and negotiate something. And it's so powerful for businesses for two reasons. The first one is you can either use it to what we would call play the game. So you can analyze a situation and get an advice on how to best react to what the other party does. Or you can use it to change the game. Because often in businesses, you are defining the rules of the game, in particular in procurement. If you're going out to tender a business and define how the final negotiations run, you define the rules of the game, and you can define it in a way that increases your likelihood of getting a good outcome. So that's the first key thing that makes game theory powerful. If you not only use it to play the game, interact in a situation, but think consciously about how to change the game, how to set things up. And the second one is that might surprise many people. It's extremely robust. And so game theory not only works with assuming everyone is 100% rational. You can model each type of behavior. So what behavioral economists did from the early 80s is finding out, well, in which situations do people act, to put it like this, super cold and super rational and only thinking about their own advantage, and in which situations is it important for people to get to a very equitable sharing of a pie or something. And game theory can work with all of those types of models, and that makes it extremely powerful. It also requires a certain level of knowledge to be properly applied.
So I have a few questions piggybacking off of what we just heard then. Procurement can utilize game theory, as you said, or businesses can apply game theory in modern solutions to be able to play the game or to change the game. If a procurement team is looking to play the game with game theory applications, what does winning look like then?
Winning for procurement means to increase the total value of ownership if you're in a negotiation situation. It means increasing your supply base or getting more sustainable supplier base set up. It can mean, like in a project I had the privilege to support for the NHS, where we kind of negotiated for them their new contract about a medicine for hepatitis C, capable of eradicating the disease as the first country in the world. For them, their challenge that they have was to make the drugs affordable, but also to find the patients. Which was a relatively tricky situation for them because the pharma companies competing for the contract had much better ways of finding the patients. And they had to think about, how do I incentivize the other parties to share the type of knowledge with me that I not only can afford to treat more patients and eradicate a deadly disease, but also find the patients beforehand. And in every situation where you want, where you are in a situation where you interact and where you want to set the right incentives to reveal information or to increase value, which can be commercial value, which can be higher quality, higher service levels, all of those other things, game theory can help. And what it helps ultimately to go back to your question is to increase the total value of ownership. And game theory is agnostic on whether increasing that means improved commercials or finding patients or a better strategy like 2 years before you source something to increase your supply base. The moment you interact, which you always do in procurement, either internally or externally, game theory can help you.
Do you believe that the maturity of procurement currently today will match the offering that nnamu has and match the use of game theory?
Mm-hmm. So I think our core principle, so why, to speak very openly, why do we enter such a crowded market?
Right.
Yeah. So when I've been a partner in a consulting company, I could have done that for the next 20 years, and my colleagues and me still started a digital business, which I think many VCs out there at first glance would call so-called red ocean. That's what venture capitals call a market where the sharks already have been for like decades, and building solutions. To answer your question, no one can be an expert in everything. And to some extent, can everyone in procurement, with all of the things they have to do, can everyone be an expert in applying game theory and be mature enough to apply game theory if the solution does not help them with it? Then the answer is no. But that's exactly why we said, okay, we're going to enter this market because we can bring something here to the procurement professionals that no one else can bring. We can close that maturity gap and that experience gap by giving recommendations. But not only kind of giving the tool to say, now apply it and use your game theory knowledge, but we're saying, now apply it. And by the way, with game theory knowledge, this is the way to do it because of the following reasons. And you can still, we always, when we say we democratize something, we always give the option to say, no, I would rather go another way, of course, and want to learn something in the solution, why people do it. But we close that maturity gap, which is there. So to answer your questions, is every organization mature enough? No, but this is exactly what we try to address.
Well, maybe let's then double click there. What type of businesses is nnamu correct for, and why is it important that a solution like yours is here and now?
Yeah. classical way in which we approached the market is to start with bigger corporations, with enterprise and corporates, but that's more for a factor of, if you are building your first solution, doing it with a corporate together and getting the instant feedback just has a lot of positive influence on how your solution is shaped. It also has, and our industry partners would be fine with me saying this, it also has a slightly bigger marketing value than when you started with a smaller company. But our product is clearly aimed at every procurement professional, irrespective whether they work in a large enterprise or in a relatively small corporation. And the way we built it is aiming to make it as self-serving as possible and give this type of guidance, and hence be applicable to all.
Understood. Fantastic. nnamu. Is there any particular reason why nnamu is nnamu?
Yeah, there's there are three reasons for it. The first one, there was this absolutely fantastic scientist born as János Neumann in Hungary, then studying in Germany, and as so many great minds in the 1920s and 1930s had to flee Germany due to him being of Jewish heritage and the horrible Nazi regime. So he emigrated to the US. And he's the founding father not only of game theory, but it's also absolutely fundamental for information technology, with the so-called von Neumann architecture and many other fields. And I always wanted to pay homage to I don't know how to pronounce the word in English. To this absolutely fantastic scientist who stands for game theory and who stands for artificial intelligence. And in addition to it, game theory is all about thinking from the end and thinking from where you want to get to what you have to do. So nnamu is the last 5 letters of John von Neumann's name, spelled backwards, nnamu. So that's for the uber nerdy reasons. Let's put it like this. It has 2 very nice side effects. Number one, it has 2 syllables, which if you Google how to name a company, that's the first advice. Always have 2 syllables and should be pronounceable in every language. Actually, has 3 things. Second thing is, everyone asks about the name, and you tell the story, and then the name sits. And the third one is, all of the domains were available. If you start with 2 N's in the beginning, we have nnamu.com and AI and UK and all of those things. That's a nice side effect.
The most important is maybe the domain name, as knowing the struggles there. So I totally understand. But listen, fantastic background, first and foremost. Secondly, super interesting naming of the company. It inspires me as well, and I hope that it inspires those out there as well that are looking to take their own journeys within the ProcureTech space or alike as entrepreneurs. Maybe we can double click there a little bit, because you said it before, right? You were comfortable. You were a consultant. What made you jump off is maybe a harsh way of putting it, but what made you choose to start this venture after years of being a partner and a consultant at TWS Partners?
So on a personal level, to see something new, being absolutely aware that this is we are talking first world problem here, but kind of trying myself out with something totally new and having challenges again, for which I not know almost to affect to where the discussion is going in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So that's kind of my personal reason behind it. I operate a little bit by coincidence in the procurement space for 13 years now, and there's also a thing where I just thought, I see all of those solutions, and I have all of those clients that I really like a lot, and they're not making full use of it. And there's so much, I'm always coming back to this word. There's so much value that procurement can create, and so much sustainable value that they can create. And I really wanted, and my co-founders and my former colleagues at TWS as well, we just have the ambition to spread the word further. We really believe in game theory, and we wanted to make it scalable. And 20 years ago, the tech was not fully there. We want to make that scalable in customer grade usability, which is quite some steps to get there. And the tech is there, and that's the combination. Kind of personal reasons, wanting to try to do something new, and wanting to contribute to procurement and beyond. We talk a lot about procurement to businesses, really democratizing and scaling game theory.
Very cool. Very inspiring as well. You said that by coincidence you wound up in procurement. Do you mind just answering a little bit of kind of what made you decide to work there? Did you choose the role, or did it choose you?
The role chose me based on my choices. Yeah. So I gotta give a little warning to some of my most favorite clients. I kind of ended up in procurement and working a lot in automotive. I personally don't care about cars. I'm really sorry to say that. I'm exaggerating a little bit. So procurement is just a fantastic field to apply game theory. And for me, this whole thing started like I studied, been at university, studied 3 things in parallel. I hadn't found my calling. Let's put it like this. Then I stumbled in a lecture in microeconomics, which thankfully was done by a fantastic professor. So big shout out, Roland Kirstein, if you hear this. And he started microeconomics with game theory, which like 21 years ago was unheard of. And I kind of sat in the first lecture and this is what I wanted to do. And this is in my professional life, what I did for the last 22 years. Kind of switched in studying that, got a PhD in economics later on. Really liked game theory, really liked applying it. Focused on my PhD on experimental economics as well. So not only kind of have the theory, but also try it out in the field. And then it was a relatively natural step if you love the theory and want to apply it, to go to the only game theory focused consultancy in the world at that point in time, TWS. And the use case in procurement is just the biggest one, and gives most fun, and gave me most fun, of applying it in negotiations, and then essentially always answering the same client question: how can you scale it? Right. And then doing processes, doing tools, and all of the other things around it. So if you would have asked me 22 years ago, you wanna procure parts for the automotive industry, I would have said nay and nay. But it gave me a lot of fun, and it gave me a lot of fantastic client relationships who I hope still speak with me after today.
Well, I'm sure that they will, and you know, the journey to where we are today, it's sometime a windy one, but I'm happy that we were able to take our journey directly here today. You've founded now nnamu, and as it can be said, right, the job of being a founder can be a lonely one, even if you have co-founders around you. I'm just curious, do you ever feel this loneliness, and if so, why? If not, how do you avoid these feelings?
You probably mean loneliness for the. I think the American expression is the buck stops here, and well, if you kind of have that can make you very lonely, because no one else wants to take the decision. Is that where you're coming from?
I mean, in the sense that, you know, it's been described by other founders of SaaS businesses, right, that without a support network as a founder, right, you are the ultimately, yes, the person that has to take a lot of tough decisions, but it's also that you're often treading upon unknown territory pretty much every single day, right? And as you said, it's a nice way to be able to challenge yourself. So I'm just curious, does that feeling inspire you, or does that sometimes make you feel alone?
Yeah, both is the brutally honest answer. I think in many aspects, me becoming a founder relatively late, yeah, in my end 30s, early 40s, kind of the years before prepared me for it, because everything I did before, TWS doesn't have like standardized products. Our product is we solve your new problem with the picture perfect solution. So it is kind of navigating in unknown territory, and normally being hired by, if it's in procurement, by a CPO, not looking at us for sourcing a C part, but saying, this is the biggest strategic decision I have over here. Can you can you help me shape the strategy for it? So I think I'm kind of used to that. Also been in leadership position before, where I think you kind of have this feeling of loneliness. Also because at some point you have to protect yourself and your team from being best friends with everyone. So I think that step, like 5-6 years ago, where I all of a sudden had a team of 20 people, and then 25, and then 30 people. And you have to take unpopular decisions. And you have to make some part of the team maybe happier than the other part of the team. I've been through that, and I experienced that as loneliness, definitely. And as you indicate, kind of have a support network in your private life, or from your peers within a consultancy is good. Of course, that peer thing then is not there anymore, because you're in your startup, and everyone you have is everyone you have for these type of decisions is your co-founder or your co-director. So I don't have a panacea. I experienced that strong network in your private life, and having someone you steer the company with that you really trust, and can openly discuss things, also discuss about disagreements, as it is definitely worth it. Doing a startup, exaggerating a little bit, but doing a startup all by yourself, and not have this sounding board / circle of trust either from your shareholders, which I think can also play this role, or with your co-director, your co-Geschäftsführer, can be a bit too lonely. Yeah, true. Have I solved it? I have not solved it completely, and I experience it. I'm trying to do the good things and go for a run all the time.
And I think that's good to take care of your mental and your physical. But I think that what you said there is very important, right? Have a board, have shareholders, have a sounding board within your management team. Very concrete tip. And I think that if you had solved the case of loneliness as a software as a service, a business to business software as a service founder, then you could bottle it up and sell it for a lot of money, Christian. So I'm not surprised that you haven't yet solved it, but it sounds like you're right on your way to feeling pretty comfortable in the space that you're in, and that you do feel comfortable in that space. That was a great little segue into something that I'm curious about, because we do have other ProcureTech founders that listen into our episodes. Do you have any concrete tips to any ProcureTech founders that are out there listening that might be just starting or are right smack dab in the middle of their own journeys?
Yeah. By the way, middle of the journey is about right for us. So I don't have the benefit of the hindsight, like 5, 6, 7 years down the line. I have a relatively a relatively technical, boring one. So I always knew in my head the difference between product-led revenue growth and sales-led revenue growth.
Yeah.
But when I started the journey, the extent of it and the extent how much you early on need to protect yourself, need to put yourself in the position to say no to clients who want the customization from you and pay you a hell of a lot of money for customization of your product, which will, however, make the growth afterwards much more complicated.
Right.
That's something which I always knew, which I still made mistakes on in the last 24, 30 months. That came back to bite me, and that came back to bite nnamu. And you can read article after article about it. Yeah, so it's not like the internet
Nope.
doesn't understand it. But let's say falling in the trap of, it sounds strange, but starting too early with sales and then being driven too much by the sales and the customization efforts rather than spending some extra time on the product and standardizing it further and extending the customer journey and improving the UI and the UX, that you can more easily sell it afterwards. That is just extremely brutal for any startup, because as a startup you always have the funding hanging above you, rightfully so. Yeah, if the money doesn't come from sales from day one, yeah, you always have this question, and it's very, very hard to get to the power of no early on and stick with it.
And I think that's a fantastic tip. Also, it calls back to what we were talking about before, right? You need early adopters to be able to adopt your solution, ensure that that solution is actually going to fit market needs. But when you get to the power of no, you can also be able to start staying steadfast in where, like you said, understanding that this product needs to be scalable more for other businesses out there, for the market. So it needs to be a market product fit, not a customer product fit, right? And I think that a lot of founders and CEOs get in that kind of hot seat and say yes, yes, yes. And it turns to a lot of pivots. And some of those pivots can lead you in the right direction, but others can lead you into hot water. So I totally understand that. And I think that it's a fantastic tip. Get to the power of no. Fantastic tip. Is there anything that you know today beyond that very concrete tip that you wish that you knew at the beginning of your journey at nnamu?
How long hiring takes?
Very good tip. I mean, no, but I mean, it's true. Can you expand upon that a bit?
Yeah. By the way, it's hiring on all levels. Again, I had some experience going into this, in a consultancy. If you want to get people who are really, really specialized in game theory and really have a lot of fun working with the client, it's not like in this Venn diagram does not include everyone who studied game theory or mathematics or physics before. Yeah, so it's like, so knowing that hiring can be a bottleneck, I also know from consultancy days. But the first 5 hires you have in your company, if they are not a 100% fit with your corporate culture, your corporate values, and what you want to build, then you will not be able to scale quickly, and you got to take hard decisions early on. And it's not like I'm not saying, like, if you have a slightly different vision of where you want to take the company, that it's wrong on any side. Yeah, but if amongst the first 5 you don't have the same idea whether you want to buy. You want to build a highly standardized product that can be used in the long run by all types of clients, and you are able to let go of some additional customization revenue. Yeah, if you're not kind of aligned on these core principles early on and trying to build two different companies that might work in a 100,000 enterprise where you can run two business units in parallel, but that's not possible. That's not possible in a startup. And finding people who are on board with the vision of the company, who very quickly can get their feet on the ground as well. It's just a process which takes quite a while, and I underestimated it. How long it takes, and then ultimately, what you do as a founder, you and the one or two others that you have pay the price for it, because for way too long you play too many roles.
Well, I appreciate you being so open and honest and authentic and transparent during today's episode. I think it's going to be really helpful for anyone that's out there listening that, like I said, is just starting or is in the middle of their journey, even those that might be further along than what you guys are at nnamu themselves. I appreciate your time and sharing your story as well. I think that you guys are doing really exciting stuff, and we're looking forward to seeing where things, are heading in the future as well for the nnamu team. I would love to get into the last segment as we need to start rounding off, which is a little bit of a quick fire round, our Kodiak Moment, where we get to share a special moment together, you and I, Christian, where we get to know Christian Paul more so, not just as the founder and the director at nnamu, but also as the person. So I'm going to ask quick fire questions, 3 or 4 questions, and I would like just one word or one sentence answers to those questions. Sound like a plan?
Okay. Absolutely. My comparative strength to be concise.
All right. Do you have a spirit animal? And if so, what is it?
An elephant.
Okay, interesting. Can you expand with one sentence? Why?
There's a highly popular kids podcast, which was not a podcast when I was small, and it was about this magic elephant who always solved every issue, and always did so in a fantastic mood. Benjamin Blümchen.
A game theorist, maybe himself. Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows?
All right. If you're getting an all expenses trip paid tomorrow, where are you heading?
New Zealand.
Okay. Interesting. Nice. That was a quick one.
Yeah.
If you are inviting me over for dinner, we have something in Swedish called your paradrätt. It's the dish that you know you're going to impress somebody with. What would you make?
Saffron tagliatelle. As everyone from our age and background, it's an Ottolenghi recipe, of course.
Okay. All right. Well, I look forward to maybe being able to share some dinner with you sometime, Christian, whether it's at yours or somewhere else. This was a fantastic episode to have you on, and I look forward to seeing where things go for you and the team at nnamu. People are trying to learn more about you or the team at nnamu. How can they reach out and get in touch?
Via a website or LinkedIn or Twitter, or dropping me a mail. You'll find me on LinkedIn. You find nnamu on LinkedIn, and we're still in a size that no messages get lost, and we are also still hiring, by the way.
Fantastic. A big shout out then to anyone that's out there looking for a job. Make sure you get in touch with Christian, or businesses, of course, looking to take their procurement to the next level with game theory, changing the game. Thank you so much, Christian, for having taking the time to be on today's episode. It was a pleasure having you on.
Thanks, Sam, for the invite.